Hey, before I begin this video, I just want to say the original Disenchanted video was taken down because Disney did not take a liking to me using their Disenchanted footage. So instead, I'm going to have to put a loop of me doing this stupid dance every time I show Disenchanted footage. Just bear with me here. Okay, let's go. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan of Enchanted when it first came out, but I have grown to love it over time, and I honestly think it deserves more recognition than it actually has. Besides, it is the first one to do the whole formula of where the cartoon character goes to the real world, some films of which have tried their hands at this shtick but failed to some extent. Enchanted is basically the movie where Disney takes their own fairy tale tropes and turns it on their heads. It's subversive, funny, and overall enjoyable. I mean, yeah, it does have its fair share of flaws, like I wish Nancy and Prince Edward's relationship were fleshed out a bit more. And the villain in this is just generic and bland and basically just a ripoff of the evil queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Maleficent from the Maleficent series and Sleeping Beauty. And yes, that does have its handful of plot holes, like if the evil queen has magical powers such as turning into a giant CGI dragon, which really didn't age well, then why didn't she use some of those powers to kill Giselle on the spot? Why did she have to rely on the poisonous apple? You are physically there. Just use some of your magic shit to prevent true love from happening or something. But whatever, if I were to complain about plot holes like that, then we'd be here all day with me listing every single movie with that plot hole. I still enjoy Enchanted nonetheless. It's a great movie that ended on a high note, and it definitely did not warrant any sequels. Until Disney did in 2022. On November 1st, 2022, Disney dropped the trailer for the long-awaited, long-anticipated sequel to Enchanted, titled Disenchanted, and it's gonna be announced that it's gonna drop on Disney Plus. And I was mildly curious by this. On one hand, I'm happy to see the cast come back, but on the other, it really got me wondering what new themes or concepts or ideas they're going to bring to the table. What else is there to expand upon the basic premise of cartoon character goes to the real world? And soon, when the movie finally got released onto Disney Plus, it certainly answered my question, alright, just not the way I expected. Look, I'll put it to you this way, okay? I find the Enchanted franchise to be somewhat in the same vein as the Incredibles franchise. The first movies were excellent. Wait for more than a dozen years later, you get these sequels which are quite bad, I might say. Okay, I'll rip off the band-aid. Disenchanted is a garbage sequel. And well, the overall reception for this movie is meh. I still feel like it got off a bit too easy, which is why I am here to break this movie down into multiple segments and explain why Disenchanted is a bad sequel. Let's begin with. So, you know, whenever people review bad movies, there's always a good handful of them to where they will say something along the lines of, oh, this movie had a good idea on paper, but lacked poorly in execution. Well, yeah, not this time. What's the basic premise of Disenchanted? Well, what if the fairy tale world were to mix with the real world? Now, don't get me wrong when I say this, but if you look at Disenchanted as its own thing, then yeah, that idea can work. However, the problem is that when you compare it to the original, it totally contradicts the idea of the first film. I mean, think about it. Like I said, the original concept of the first movie was that what if a Disney princess were to go to the real world? And what did they do with this concept? Well, it shows the contrast between the fairy tale world and the real world by showing how Giselle acts and how Robert acts. It's simple but fun. I also like how in the beginning they try to hammer home the fact that the real world is nothing compared to the fairy tale world, because obviously the real world isn't all sunshine and rainbows, so that makes Giselle look like an outcast and a weirdo. People are gonna be rude and shove you aside and steal your jewelry.
Oh, where are you going? That's mine!
Then, as the movie goes on, it says, okay, maybe not everything has to be a bundle of negativity, shine some positive light in it, which is exactly what Giselle does. She brings the best out of everyone, tries to help them with their problems, and also manages to keep everyone happy 24/7 because that's what she wants to do. Now, let's take a look at Disenchanted. Again. Yeah, so when the first film has already established the big gap between the fairy tale world and the real world, then having them intertwined together just doesn't work. It's like trying to bend a metal pole in order to make both ends meet. It's certainly accomplishable, but what's the point of the metal pole anymore to serve its purpose as a metal pole? You just bend it into a circle. It's useless. But that's fine. All I said was that this idea was not good. Whatever. Maybe the execution can make up for it. Who am I kidding? Of course it's not good. In fact, it's even more egregious. You know, when I first watched this movie, it had quite a decent start, so I was on board with it. Until they said this line.
But the hardest part of all was Morgan. She became what that world calls a teenager.
Okay, two things. One, why is the music so intense? And two, yep, they're gonna do one of those things now. So yeah, Morgan is now a teenager in this movie, which means they can do every single teenage cliche there is in every movie possible. I mean, they got it all. Getting embarrassed by your mom on your way to school? Check.
Believe in yourself. And she makes a great friend. I'm glad you like them. There you go. Vote for Morgan. What are you doing? Oh, well, I was just thinking. In Andalasia, we have festivals all the time, and everybody knows the prince and the princess, and now everyone will know you.
Yes, but I told you that I could figure this out on my own.
Extreme negativity and talking down to your parents? Check.
Memory tree. And as we say in Andalasia,
Memories are the most powerful magic of all, I know. I'm not really sure it works the same way here.
Morgan, I know you didn't want to come here, but if you give it a chance, it will get better.
What if it doesn't? I should just go back to school in New York and I can take the train with Dad. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah, and my personal favorite line.
My mother? She is not my mother. She's my stepmother.
Like, what the actual shit? Not only does this make Morgan extremely unlikable, but also I swear I have heard this line before like 50 times.
Trying to protect you! That's what fathers do!
Well, I wish you weren't my father.
Yeah, see, like I'm not the only one going crazy about this, right? Okay, let's see here. Since when did Ice Age 4 came out? A whole decade after Disenchanted was released? It's been a whole decade and you're still using this line? Piss off, movie. Even goddamn Jurassic World Dominion has said this line. And that movie was released in the same year as Disenchanted.
Where are you going?
You can't keep me here, you're not my mother.
I swear, whoever writes these characters must be in like a hoot or something, because there's no way they can dish out the same line 3 times in different forms and have us not notice. Calm down, TXY, calm down. It's just a line. There's no need to get so angry about it. It's just a line. It's fine. You have other segments to go through in this garbage movie. But yeah, in conclusion, basically Morgan is just extremely unlikable and super cliche. End of story. Oh, and don't worry about that version of Morgan because she belongs in another set of problems that I will talk about later. So now that I'm done talking about Morgan, let's talk about the main cast of adults. To set the stage of how great this movie is, you know how the trailers made it seem like Nancy and Prince Edward were gonna reunite with Giselle and Robert, and all 4 of them are gonna go on one big adventure together? Well, yeah, no. All the parts that showed Nancy and Prince Edward in the trailers were about the equivalent of the screen time that they got in the actual movie. Nancy and Prince Edward reintroduced themselves in this movie by shooting magical dust out of a well and it transports them to the real world, of which, wait a minute, the first film's magical portal to the real world was a manhole cover. And in this one, it's a well of which you have to shoot out magical dust in order to appear. Okay, hold on a second, I have a couple of questions. First off, why do you need to shoot magical goo out of the well in order to appear in the real world? The first film clearly didn't have that, it's just Giselle removing the manhole cover. I didn't see any magical goo shooting out of that one, so why did they shoot magical goo out of this well, huh? Secondly, this just establishes that there's more than one portal between the cartoon world and the real world. So like, does every hole in the ground is a portal to the cartoon world? If so, then why am I not seeing the cartoon world being infested with rabbits and earthworms and anything that lives underground? Thirdly, if we just assume that these are the only two portals to the cartoon world, then what happens during the main event of this story when someone just accidentally falls into the hole, huh? Because it clearly establishes that later in the movie when Morgan fell into the hole, it shows that she manages to get out by touching the tree's memories, and it summons the magical goo to shoot her back into the reality world. So like, what happens if someone actually fell into that hole during the events of this movie, and are they just stuck there forever for like cartoon eternity? And don't you come at me saying that they could have just touched the memories in order to get out, because they have this line right here.
Things were so much easier back then. Whoa. What was that?
You brought the flower back to life.
I did? But how? I'm not magic.
No, but these memories are. And they live inside you as well, which means their magic does too. Morgan, you're the key. That's what Giselle meant by telling you to save us.
There you go, only those with the magical memories of Giselle can touch these memories and summon the magical goo, essentially Morgan. So there, my question is justified. I mean, the only answer that I can come up with to my 3 questions are:
don't ask questions, just consume product and then get excited for next product.
But whatever, Nancy and Prince Edward reunite with Giselle and Robert in the real world, and both of them are useless. This is the only thing that they do.
They had to do something extra special.
Presenting your wand of wishes, the most magical of tools.
Yeah, good job guys, let's all give them a round of applause. You guys did one thing that serves to the story. Now screw off and never appear again until the 3rd act. Prince Edward was my favorite out of the 4 main adults in the first movie because he was charming and enjoyable. Here, he does nothing. He gives Robert his sword and that's about the extent of his character. Even the movie seems to acknowledge this in the 3rd act.
Edward.
You go. Someone needs to stay behind to protect our world.
Yeah, that's a poor translation of "I'm a useless character now, write me out of this movie." And while he wasn't super fleshed out in the first movie, at least he had this tiny moment right here to where when Giselle ate the poisonous apple, he tries to do true love's kiss on her, which obviously had no effect because Giselle didn't love him no more. So he had to get Robert to kiss her because he soon embraces and even accepts the fact that Giselle is in love with another man who's not him. And what I love about this scene is that he doesn't go all super whiny and shit and tries to kill Robert. No, he embraces it. That's it. Here, he gets nothing. He loses. Good day, sir. Nancy, somehow she's even more useless than she was in the first movie. She sings like a little song as the magical goo sends them back to the real world because she wants to team up with Morgan to take down the evil Giselle. She reunites with Robert in the screaming crowd once again, and so her, Robert, Morgan, and Morgan's crush. Oh wait, yeah, that's right. Have I forgot to mention that Morgan has a crush in this movie? Silly me. How could I forget one of the most important characters in this movie? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because he has like 3 scenes before the climax in this 2-hour movie, and I genuinely forgot his name. Like seriously guys, I don't really know what his name is. We'll just call him Morgan's crush. The 4 of them go together to stop the evil Giselle. Morgan's crush and Robert use their swords to cut through the vines, even though you can clearly see in this shot that swords, yeah, are not all that effective against vines. And yet the next scene, the 4 heroes somehow manage to enter the town hall. Okay, yeah. Morgan trips over the vine and Giselle just so happens to catch the one piece of memory she has left of being a good princess, that being the memory tree that Morgan made on a piece of paper containing her family's memories and all the good times that they had. But Giselle rips it apart and it turns into magical dust and starts chanting to her. Cool.
I'm right here, Morgan.
With these magical memories, the curse is now broken and Giselle is now back to being good. After all that, Nancy tells Giselle that hey, Andalasia is dying because all the magic is being sucked out of that world to go into the real world, of which all of Andalasia will die, including Giselle herself. And with that being said, that's all for Nancy's character. Thanks for coming back to reprise your role in Dina Menzel, but you didn't really offer much. Oh well, back to Frozen it is. Robert, he has degraded to nothing in this movie. He has like 2 whole segments in this where he fights a giant and a dragon, but both of them add to nothing other than useless bullshit to the movie. This just goes to show that there is nothing left for his character, so don't bring him back for a sequel more than a dozen years later after the original, only for this character to do absolutely nothing. But what about that scene in the climax where he does that thing? Oh, you want to talk about that scene in the climax? Don't worry, I have some very, very nice things to say about that scene in the climax. Please send help. The main villain of this movie is even more one-dimensional and cliched than the villain from the first movie, which I find hard to imagine. And even before Giselle made her wish, nothing screams villain from her. I didn't see any evil in this person. Before the wish, she was this strict and demanding boss, but she's not evil. Like, I don't know why after Giselle made the spell, the magic just depicted her as this super evil queen who's the boss of this whole town, when in reality she's just following the rules. I don't know why this movie tries to depict her as evil when she did nothing wrong.
Morgan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Giselle, but you can't have a table on school property unless you're an official member of a committee.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Well, now you do. Ladies, glad.
Like, she's just following the guidelines. Nothing screams evil to me about her. And well, yes, not all strict and demanding people are good. There will be a couple of them here and there who will abuse their power, but for this movie's context's sake, she didn't do anything wrong. She's not evil. I can see strict, I can see demanding, but not evil. She even used some magical abilities to heal some flowers, so I don't know why the movie constantly wants to tell me that she is a menace. She is the threat to society. She is the boss of this, so you need to watch out for her. And even as a villain, she sucks. She puts Morgan to sleep, ties her up with some vines, and then sets her motivation.
Your helpful scroll explained at the last stroke of midnight, your wish is permanent. And I like this world. So you're going to drop that wand and let the clock strike, and then she'll be free.
Then why did you let Robert and Morgan's crush rush to that scene in the climax? Why can't you just use your magical abilities to stop them? Just stop them. Why are you letting them go?
It's like a wish come true.
Yeah, that's how I want the main villain of this movie to go out, to sit on this chair in a building to where a house is emerging from underground and do nothing to prevent the heroes from winning. What are you doing, movie? The main villain's henchmen and Pip the squirrel are fine, I guess. I mean, Pip the squirrel turned into a cat. The henchmen steal the one away from Giselle. But then later in the movie, when Giselle goes full evil stepmom mode, she orders Pip to steal back the one. So, you know, there's that. However, despite my rambling of the other characters, none of them were as poorly mishandled and as mistreated as Giselle herself. Okay, so let me give you a rundown of her character in this movie. She is stressed, everyone is against her, and so what does she do? She picks up the magical wand brought by Nancy and Prince Edward and makes her wish. Make a fairy tale world in the real world. Basically, she wants to live the way that she wants. I'm sorry, what? What happened to the Giselle I know? You know, the one that doesn't care if it's a real world or a fairy tale world, she would still help people regardless. And before you come at me saying, well, obviously, it's been years after the original, she's gonna change. Well, then, okay, then tell me this. If she has supposedly changed after the years after the original, then why is she still just as naive and as oblivious as before? She can't do simple cooking.
I'm so late. I can't figure out this commuting thing. Coffee, thank you so much. Let me get some cream for that. Oh my God, what is that smell?
Good morning. I made you some, toast.
She doesn't understand sarcasm.
Closet, I'm sure there are lots of fun options in there. We're making a real splash at my new school.
Yes. She sometimes says one thing and means the opposite.
Huh?
I can never tell.
And she still takes things way too literally.
I was just thinking, in Andalasia we have festivals all the time and everybody knows the prince and the princess and now everyone will know you.
So you're telling me that someone can make a dress out of curtains but can't do simple things like toast?
Where did you get that?
I made it. Do you like it?
You're unhappy.
You made a dress out of my curtains?
Oh, you are unhappy.
Wow, yeah, Giselle seems to have really changed these past few years, didn't she? So for her to do this wish, to essentially just brainwashing everyone and turning them into fairy tale stereotypes to fulfill her own desires, it just comes off more as selfish to me. Hey Disney, I said that she was naive and oblivious, not that she would be this dumb and stupid to make this wish and not think about the consequences behind it. Okay, so strict and demanding boss can be interpreted as the most evil person alive, but somehow princess makes selfish wish is portrayed as a good thing? Wow, Disney are really teaching kids the right things these days. Now that I have that huge chunk mess of characters out the way, let's talk about some other things of the movie, like the pacing. The pacing of this movie is very weird. It's all over the place. Like one moment you're having this serious storyline about Giselle turning to the dark side, and the next you're having this goofy, wacky adventure of Robert trying to capture this giant. This just commits one of the biggest movie sins. It's boring. This movie is 2 hours long, and oh boy, it does not justify that runtime. I could cut out like 30 minutes of this movie, and I can guarantee you, you would not miss a single thing. The songs are great, but aside from Love Power or Ruined by Something before or after it, like with the song about Giselle wanting to have a fairy tale life. It's a nice song, but then once you realize it's behind the context of, oh, I'm going to brainwash this entire town and turn people into fairy tale cliches so I can live the life I wanted, it just really leaves you a bad taste in your mouth. Now with that huge chunk of a segment out of the way, let's talk about that scene in the climax. So if you're wondering why I didn't include this scene in my previous segment, it's because it is so incomprehensibly stupid that I can rant about it for a whole segment. Which scene am I talking about, you may ask? Well, here you go. Oh, what's that? You didn't see the scene? Don't worry, I'll happily replay it for you. You guys don't know how many times I had to rewatch that scene to process the sheer stupidity and idiocy that I witnessed before my very eyes. Honestly, if everything else before that one scene is like chef's kiss, perfection, 11 out of 10 masterpiece, then this one scene immediately brings it out to a 5 out of 10. That's how bad this scene is. Do they seriously think that stopping the clock will stop time? Clocks are just a representation of time, not time itself. It doesn't take a history lesson to know that. Listen, I don't care that this movie has this one line that tries to save its own ass.
Your helpful scroll explained at the last stroke of midnight, your wish is permanent.
What do you mean? Technically, time is still ticking regardless of whether you stop the clock or not, so stop digging around, fix the magic, and get it done. But if that's the nonsense that you want to go for to justify this scene, then fine, I have something to criticize it as well. Earlier in the movie, with the scenes with Robert in it, yes, it is now established that there are giants in this world. So why can't Robert do what Anna did in Frozen 2 and attract the giants over to the Clocktower to destroy it? That way it can't strike midnight because there is no clock left. Either way, my conclusion is that the one who created the fairy tale world, you know, the one behind all this fairy tale magic shit, yeah, must have an actual IQ of an embryo. Cause that's not how time works, dipshit. It is literally one of the most common senses out there that clocks are just there to represent time, not time itself, and yet you still manage to screw it up. Oh wait, that's it? This segment is a lot more shorter than I anticipated. Oh well, time to go to the conclusion then. Look, is this the worst piece of Disney media / product ever made? No, it is not. Quite far from it actually. There are some good things to like about the film. For example, the up in production quality ever since the original, but like, you know, that's a given. And from what I've seen behind the scenes, it does seem like the cast had a fun time, you know, reuniting together and coming back for this movie, of which, you know, good for them. But man, does everything just pale in comparison to the original. But you know, if you want to watch this movie on Disney Plus, then go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. Don't let my personal opinions affect yours. You can have whatever opinion and feel however you like about the movie. If you genuinely think this movie is excellent and a worthy sequel to the original, then great. I'm glad you liked it. In conclusion, Disenchanted is a disoriented mess with a talented cast that are either wasted or just mistreated. And there's that one scene in the climax that really annoyed me. And if you want a personal rating of mine on this movie, I don't know, 3 out of 10? Sure, we'll go with that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go make a wish. A wish that I never knew Disenchanted existed and Enchanted was ended off as it is.